Back when I was in middle school, there was a tradition that every year, the entire graduating generation would get to go to a summer camp out in the middle of nowhere. The entire week, we would do various fun activities. Now, I had no problem with these, even if some were a little bit too physically demanding for my middle school self. However, the one that stressed me out the most was not the intense paintball battle for the woods, or the exciting nighttime scavenger hunt. It was the dance. On the last week of the camp, the counselors would host a dance, similar to prom, where everyone was forced to go. But there was a catch, because you weren't allowed in if you didn't have a partner. Looking back, I believe I took the situation way too seriously. And this was partly because I wasn't very confident back then, and also because I genuinely did not want to ask anyone out. Later that night, we were all having dinner together, ravenously hungry from everything we had done that day. Out of the blue, someone decided to ask their dance partner out in public. Everyone laughed and cheered in excitement, waiting for that yes or no. All of a sudden, other people started to call on others to pass up to the front and ask someone out. Now I stood still in my seat, mentally hoping, begging to not be mentioned. But then, I heard my name. I froze. I was completely blindsided. Slowly, what went from one person suggesting my appearance quickly grew to the entirety of the crowd chanting for me to go. And as the crowd erupted, so did my emotions. I couldn't move. My pulse was elevated, and my mind was a battlefield between logic and emotion. And I had to make a decision right there and then. And I said no. Immediately, all of the buildup, the tension was released, and everyone went quiet, sat down amongst murmurs, and then proceeded to call on someone else. I was no longer under that unwanted spotlight, but most importantly, I had done something I wanted. I had said no. But something felt off, because I did not feel proud or confident after the fact. I felt ashamed, like a coward, like if I had let every single person in that room down. This made me ask the following questions. Why did I not feel good about doing what I wanted to do? Why did I feel that I needed to do what others were telling me to do? Why is it so hard to say no? The answer may surprise you, as not only is it a cultural one, it is also deeply connected to the best tool we humans have for making decisions: our brains. Scientists have been able to identify the two parts of our brain that light up like a light bulb whenever we have to make a choice. In his book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, Daniel Kahneman identifies the first as System 1. Now, I'm sure we have all had a crush before, whether it has been at school or at work. You could look at them for hours and you say to yourself, God, they are so dreamy. But then their eyes connect with yours and you quickly look away. And only then you realize that, oh yeah, I'm in math class right now. This is an example of System 1 at work, because System 1 is the emotional and instinctive part of the brain. It deals with everything related to happiness, sadness, anger, lust, and the human need to survive every day. Have you ever been to Starbucks, walking up to the cashier, and realize you have no idea what you actually want to order? You look up at the menu and wonder, the caramel macchiato looks extra delicious, but then again, the classic Americano, it just never fails. It's only then that you realize that you've been standing in line, completely still, looking at the ceiling like a moron for 5 minutes, and the cashier is looking at you dead in the eyes. And he's probably thinking something along the lines of, I don't get paid enough for this. This is an example of System 2, because System 2 is the smart part of the brain. It deals with everything related to logic, calculations, rationality, and long-term planning. When we have to make a decision, both of these systems work together in order for us to make the right choice. But if we have the right tools for the job, then why do we still make mistakes? Imagine you're at Costco or any wholesale store. You're casually strolling through the halls, let's say with your cart, right? And you walk by the clothing section, and something catches your eye. What? No, it can't be. Socks? 50% off? That's impossible. And then you walk past the bakery and the sweet, sweet smell of chocolate fills the air. And finally you get up to the cashier. You look at your cart and you realize it's full of things you didn't even know you wanted. Stores like Costco are actually purposely designed for this to happen by abusing faults in our cognition known as cognitive biases. When we fall for cognitive biases, our System 1 overpowers System 2. Checkmate, because emotion has just won against logic. This is why we're so susceptible to peer pressure, why it's so hard to say no. As mentioned in an article by Psychology Today, the need to belong is deeply wired into human biology. In ancient times, those who stuck together survived, while the lone wolf died alone. Conformity gave our ancestors a necessary evolutionary advantage. Without it, society would not exist today. This is why we're so susceptible to peer pressure. Another reason why teenagers especially are very susceptible to this phenomenon is because the decision centers in our brains don't fully mature until we are 20 years old. 20 years old! Think about it. They make us make the most important decision in our lives when we're 17. No matter how mature we are or how smart we are, our decisions will always be biologically limited in comparison to those of an adult. This is why teenagers are so susceptible to peer pressure, to emotional reactions, to cognitive biases, and to doing things we don't want to do. However, our decisions are not only just affected by our cognition, they're also deeply influenced by our culture. According to psychologist Megan Bruno, there are 4 false cultural beliefs that make it so hard for us to say no. Don't be selfish. Never turn down an opportunity. Always follow through with your commitments. And last but not least, if you can do something, just do it, right? Now, I'm sure we have all heard these teachings in one way or another. And in certain situations, they work. They're not bad. But most of the time, they can be really harmful. This is because they teach us to put the priorities of others before our own, to satisfy other people. As Bruno mentions, we don't want to let other people down. But this is not a healthy way to live. Don't be a people pleaser, please. Not only does it lead to various negative emotions like regret and anxiety, it also prevents you from living the life you want to live. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you to be a bad person. It's good to help others, to be helpful, to be supportive, to be empathetic. But it becomes bad whenever it becomes an obstacle between you and who you want to be. Now that you know why it's so hard to say no, why should I even try to say no? Well, you should try because saying no builds who you are. It defines your identity. And your identity is important because it creates your values. And your values are directly reflected in your choices, your actions, your habits, your decisions. As James Clear mentions in his book, Atomic Habits, a good decision is one that follows your identity, that contributes to who you are right now and to who you will be tomorrow. Sounds familiar, right? A bad decision is one that goes against your identity, one that goes against your core values. James further elaborates on this through the concept of decisive moments. Now, decisive moments are small yet powerful decisions that can completely change the course of your day or even your life. Just as the decision that Morpheus prevents Neo with in The Matrix, you either take the red pill or the blue pill. You either say yes and continue to do what others want you to do, doing things you don't want to do, or you say no, and you see how deep the rabbit hole really goes. Saying no is extremely important because it is a requirement for making good decisions. And good decisions are relevant because they reflect what you value, and what you value builds your identity. It creates, it shapes who you are. So then, how do I say no? Step 1, embrace the freeze. Whenever we make a decision, sometimes we act instinctively and we later regret the outcome. If we do not give ourselves enough time to think, our emotions will act before us. Step 2, feel. How you are feeling can tell you a lot about the choice you really want to make. When I was back in the summer camp, I felt anxious, pressured, uncomfortable, and I knew that I didn't want to ask anyone out. So I said no. And step 3, evaluate how this decision affects who you are. As I said before, our decisions reflect what we value, and what we value defines our identity. A person who's trying to cut down on their drinking won't ask for wine at a fancy restaurant. When we give our decisions the perspective of the person we want to become, it becomes much clearer how they contribute to that path. So, next time you have to make a decision, just remember, embrace the freeze. Think and feel. Because no matter what you choose, it will be your choice. Why? Because now you know the power of saying no. Thank you.